Hi, this is Kate from Generate Magic. So if you ever feel like you lose yourself in your desires or your goals, you become obsessive and you feel like you can't even be okay with yourself unless you achieve these goals. And as you've probably discovered, the goalpost is always changing. Then I want you to know that you're not alone. And I have some things to share in this video that I think are really going to help you, some insights that I've had recently. And so recently I achieved what might be considered by some, including myself, to be a win. And I had had almost a year of a lot of financial uncertainty. And then I recently acquired a position that would allow me to, or not a position, but kind of like a new role that would kind of allow me to gain a consistent or a steady source of income each month, which for a freelancer is gold. And so I was very excited about this, and I felt very relieved and very good about myself. And so you can see kind of the things that I'm describing. So a sense of security, and also kind of, I felt like my self-worth had been renewed. And because when I wasn't making the income that I felt like I should be making, I felt very much like a loser and a failure. And so I was feeling all these things, but the victory, at least the internal victory, was very short-lived. And because all of a sudden, once again, the goalpost was changing, I was like, well, now I need to maintain this new position. There was kind of a lot of uncertainty around it. I didn't want to tell too many people because I thought, well, what if I, tell people and then I end up, then my victory ends up getting snatched away from me, and then I just feel like a fool. And then on top of it, kind of in manifestation lingo, I didn't think it necessarily qualified as a success story, or at least the types of success stories that you hear in manifestation communities, like very miraculous success stories of like overnight success and people, winning millions of dollars or winning the lottery jackpot. And I was like, this isn't like one of those successes. And so it's not even really, worth reporting or worth telling anybody, or not even really worth giving myself a pat on the back. And so this is why, exactly why they call it a comparison trap, because it's very much like a trap. As you can see, there's kind of no end to it. And this kind of goes for a lot of different things, whether it's whether you're in the nutrition and fitness, or whether, it's career goals or relationships, like it just kind of goes on and on and on. And so there's two main reasons that my mindset was problematic. And the first reason is that life, if there's one thing that we can count on in life, is that change is a constant. And nature is always in flux. Everything is always in flux. We can see this just even if we look at the surface of a pond, which we think of as being very placid, very still, we can still see ripples in the surface of the pond. We can still see clouds moving in the sky. And so change is always a constant. And so to base our sense of worth or a sense of peace or a sense of security on, something that's always changing, you can see how that's kind of building your house on a shaky foundation. In fact, it would be like building your house on a foundation of toothpicks in an earthquake zone. and that's about, when you really come down to it, like it's absurd. And then on top of it, when I was kind of thinking about, okay, well, what makes a successful manifestation? And that itself is kind of absurd because all of these are just kind of terms that we've invented. Because the thing is that we're always manifesting, and I don't even really like that term because it makes it kind of sound like a magic trick or something that we're doing, when really everything that we experience in our life is a reflection of our awareness. And so it's not like, oh, I did such and such, and now I'm going to claim my manifestation trophy. And, who is it anyway that defines what, even if we're going to say, okay, I give it that, even if we kind of, talk about it in manifestation in those terms, who is it that defines a successful manifestation, and what criteria are we using, or whose criteria are we using? And if we kind of, to make it a broader discussion, like let's look at success. And what is it that you would consider to be your definition of success? And every person is going to have a different answer. But a lot of times we kind of measure it on some number, whether it's the amount of money in our bank account, whether it's our salary, whether it's our weight, or if you're really into fitness, your body fat percentage, or your relationship status, or how many friends you have. And you can see how these are all just arbitrary numbers. And on top of that, these numbers have no meaning outside of the meaning that you give them. And so to beat yourself up because you're not in the number that you think you should, your bank account isn't where you think it should be, or your weight isn't where you think it should be, it's really just, again, it's absurd when you really kind of think about it from a logical standpoint. And so the question that I kind of ask myself is, what is the constant in all of this? If life is always changing, or if you kind of think about it in terms of a science experiment, and we have all these variables, but there's the control in the experiment, or there's the constant. And the constant, of course, is us, is what we're aware of. And I know in a lot of kind of spiritual content, you've probably heard people talk about I am, or I am awareness. And sometimes it can seem kind of like a lot of like abstract mumbo jumbo. I know for me, I felt like that for a long time. But really kind of what it comes down to is where we're kind of positioning ourselves in relation to all of these other factors which are constantly changing. And only we have the power to kind of define. So for instance, I actually talked about this in another video where for months, for weeks, and even months, I was very upset about my money situation. I was having, for weeks on end, I was having like constant breakdowns. I was feeling very depressed, very discouraged, beating myself up. And then finally I was like, you know what, maybe I don't have complete control, at least, kind of from my limited human self, over how much money is in my bank account, but I do have control over whether or not I allow it to ruin my life, or whether or not I allow it to ruin my day. And I can still kind of find things to enjoy in my life, or find things to enjoy in my day, no matter how much money I have in my bank account. Like I have that power is in my hands. And so it's kind of like going back to the center of the court in a game of tennis. And again, you can kind of ask yourself, anytime you feel like you're becoming obsessive, or you're overly identifying with a goal, and just kind of asking yourself, okay, well, what am I aware of at this moment, and how am I relating to this, and who's the boss? I did another video on that, like who's the boss, who's in charge here, or is the condition in charge, is the money in charge, is this, the specific person who's not doing what I want, are they in charge, are my thoughts and feelings, which again are very arbitrary and constantly changing, are they in charge, or am I in charge? And that is kind of the one constant in all of this. And I liked it when it comes to kind of losing ourselves, or defining our self-worth based on our goals or our achievements. The way I started kind of relating to it was like when I was a kid and I got my first Game Boy and I started playing Super Mario Land. Obviously, video games have become much more sophisticated since then, but I just remember, how fun and how satisfying it was to kind of collect those gold coins and literally level up. And so I tried it. Now whenever I have any sort of goal that I'm striving for, and it's okay to strive for these goals and to want things and to desire things, but to see it kind of all as part of the game. And that's kind of what helps me to maintain that level of detachment. And even when you die, quote unquote, die in a video game, right? It's not like, it's not like your life is over. Like you can either play again, you can go out, go do something else. And so that's really kind of what's helped me. And anytime I kind of feel myself, losing myself in the goal, and to see all of it as part of the game, the manifestation techniques and processes, even the troubleshooting, if we can kind of detach from that and see that part of that is the game, like, oh, what challenge, do I want to tackle that next? And kind of, kind of approaching it like, instead of like, oh no, from this very kind of defeatist mindset, almost kind of seeing it that as part of the game too. And because in truth, if we did just kind of like sail off into the sunset and everything was just like a flat line from here on out, as much as sometimes, we think we would want that, in truth, it would be very boring. So to kind of see it all as part of the challenge and to see it all as part of the fun. And there were some times, in my life where I would, because I recognized in this in myself, that I tended to become very obsessive when I had goals or when I had desires. And so I was like, okay, well, if I just become complacent and not want anything, then I won't have this problem anymore. But then I would eventually find myself getting bored with that. And so finally I realized, there's nothing wrong, with goals, and there's nothing wrong with having desires. Again, it just kind of comes back to how we relate to it, and not, kind of not using these goals and these desires as a barometer for measuring our worth, or, measuring our quote unquote success as, oh, I can finally kind of give myself permission to feel peace or to feel security or just to feel good in general. And so there's something, I recently joined a mastermind with Joseph Rodriguez. I would highly recommend anybody that's, interested in that sort of thing to join, because it really kind of bridges the best of both worlds. I've done a lot of business masterminds, a lot of groups that are more kind of centered around like spirituality, and this really kind of brings it all together. It eliminates a lot of the kind of dogmatism that you see in a lot of business masterminds, where it's like, oh, you should do it this way, you have to do it this way. But at the same time, it kind of gives you, for people that are into business, that are very kind of goal driven, it gives you a lot of like pragmatic tools around that. And the people in the group are just wonderful, very empowering, just a lot of synchronicities, a lot of support. I'll give a link in the description below for anybody that's interested. But anyway, one thing that we keep talking about in the group, and also that Joseph talks about in his YouTube videos, it's just this whole idea of lessening identification. And each time we kind of feel ourselves again becoming obsessive, kind of losing ourselves, just coming back to center court, just coming back to this I am awareness, this idea that underneath it all, that we are divinely perfect. And I don't mean Instagram perfect, but I mean perfect in the divine sense, in this greater reality as God sees us. And to see everything else, the goals and the desires, as just details or just nuances or different iterations. And they're fun ways to explore and to expand and to level up. But none of it has any effect on who you are beyond all of that. And so I kind of see it more and more as I'm this divine being, and I'm in this human avatar, and that's part of the game too. Just seeing, okay, well, what role do I want to play next as this avatar? What game do I want to play? What adventure do I want to go on? What challenge do I want to tackle next? But from kind of a fun standpoint. And so I think the more you sort of gamify the whole process, the more you'll see this, the more you'll kind of loosen your grip, you'll gain some detachment, and you'll see everything. You'll just have this sense of lightness, this sense of fun. It'll lessen the gravity, and you'll realize, I think the number one thing is that you are okay no matter what. And I can kind of think of all the times in my life where I thought my life was just going to end, my world was just going to crash down, and it didn't. Like, life goes on. And it's that I am awareness, it's that constancy, beneath it all, beneath the crashing waves. So that's what I want to leave you with today. I hope you found this helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.